The following is a critique of the 2024 World Championship of Public Speaking from Anaheim, California. The critique is by 5 world champions of public speaking and 1 world-class comedy writer. This is designed for educational and inspirational purposes. Lean in, hang on, and learn. Be a sponge.
So, thought we would just dive in. What were your thoughts that stood out? We all kind of took notes just to remind us or prompt us. Anyone care to jump in?
Do we want to go through it like speaker by speaker in order?
Do that. Sure.
That's a good idea.
That way all of our notes will be in line.
There you go. And if are any of the contestants, any of the people who competed in here now? Are none of you were the contestants? I'm sorry, yes, today.
Finals.
In
In the
today.
finals. We just want to know who we're going to offend. Just kidding.
Well, we could be like Lisa. Hope we offend all of them.
That was hysterical. All right, so Ravi, by your side. Lance, you look like you want to say something.
Well, no, I was just going to say, why don't you call on who you don't want to speak? But
Lance.
Thank you. I'll just go over some stuff I wrote down. Ravi had great humor, had a lot of laughs. I counted like over 15 laughs on it. He had a good pace, very descriptive phraseology throughout. The whole thing, though, was about having a guide in life. And he talked about this parasailing situation we had with this guide. But he never shared with us how he took that lesson and he got a guide in life and what that made for him, with the application of that lesson, so we could say, oh, if I had this guide in this part of my life, this would help. He said he had a life coach, he had a wife, he had I think a speaking coach, but he never gave us any insight to how that guide helped him. And one of the things I look for in the speech is, once you get the message, I look for the application of that message in your life, because what I found, the way the audience understands that works is when you share how it changed your life. Instead of me telling you need to do it, I share how it changed my life. And you go, oh, I could do that. And that was the big thing I saw missing at it. The other thing, for me, it's a issue. I don't like asking questions to the audience, and I don't allow the audience to answer. Because I'm trying to keep the audience's attention up here. And if I ask you a question, where does your attention go? It goes back into your head. Now I got to get your attention back up here. And I actually think it's rude to ask somebody a question and not give them a chance to answer it. He asked the audience 4 questions, and have you ever done that? And he never gives you a chance. How about, have you ever done that? And get an answer. Okay, I give you a chance to answer. So that was one of the other little things I saw.
Just in sequence, I wrote down that I liked his line when he talked about putting the apparel on, whatever the harness or whatever, with the parachute, about to do the parasailing. And he wrote, tying that knot, he said it was scarier than tying this knot.
Yeah,
that was a clever turn of a phrase.
Great writing. Great.
Exactly, and I loved when he had the great use of a pause. Everybody knows a pause is helpful, and he used it masterfully when he had his wife say to the instructor, he had his wife say, "How dare you say that about my husband that I just found out?" It was a very good pause, very good timing, and then I liked the rhythmic construction of the phrase, "Go with a guide by your side." It made it more memorable. I mean, it was, just go with a guide is one way, but go with a guide by your side, it just helped to make it stick. So I commend him on very, very tight writing.
For me, one of the first things that stood out was that he chose to do the long story format. And it's been interesting over the years that I've been watching the World Championship, where you've had people that predominantly use the 3 anecdote model and just 3 short stories. And now we've started to see more and more people are gravitating to the long story format, which allows you to establish so many more visuals in the audience's mind. And for me, that is one of the best ways to engage an audience, is to plant those images in their minds and take them there with you. Now, the one thing that stood out for me in terms of feedback, I am very particular about movement on stage, because I believe that natural movement, the movements that we have in everyday conversations, those are more authentic, that those are the more conversational movements. And I did feel Ravi was a little bit stiff, and it was clear that certain movements were choreographed. So if you want to be natural, just keep it simple. Keep it in the same gestures that you use in your everyday conversation. because that is going to connect more and more, especially as the speeches and stories become more conversational.
Like David mentioned, the line about the tying of the knot, which one was scarier, I noted there was also, I thought, some good change of direction when he talked about, some people fear heights, some people fear drowning. I fear both. That was a nice little twist. I thought he missed a little bit of an opportunity when he was on there and he said he wished he had John by his side. I thought he missed an opportunity to play that up and maybe just call out, John! Or something that could have been a little bit more, that's the visual picture of that. And then the other thing is, for me, I kind of feel like if someone, if someone in your story says to you what your speech title is, I almost need to be hearing them say it the first time I hear it said from someone. Because when it was said by the guide, better to go with the guide by your side, later he said his wife said to him, better to go with the guide by your side. And I found myself saying, really? She said, now if she was standing there and heard the guide say it, give me a little clue about that. But I felt a little bit of uncertainty there. And so for me, if my title is said to me by somebody, I want the one closest to me to be the one they hear it from first. So that's it.
And ladies and gentlemen, Angelie just stepped into the room.
His feedback is so important, right?
Sure.
So I actually told them, they did photos first, and I said, I need to get to Darren LaCroix's thing. I want to, where am I going?
That's what I'm talking about.
Hi, David. Thank you for the note. This is what it's all about, right?
Do you have anything you would like to, I know you just did an interview with Arron.
Yeah.
But was anyone not in there with Arron?
How dare you?
Okay, start over.
So they would like to hear from you, so let's
Okay.
just, do you have,
Just say something?
what did you learn through the contest?
Well,
What worked?
so here's the thing. I'm not somebody that's going to have like the nice Toastmasters perfect answer. But what I will say is that I'm extremely humbled to be here. I might start crying or whatever. There's 30,000 people that started this. So, and I know that I didn't come after this to win a trophy. I'm not trying to be humble. I really didn't. I read a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You. Steve Martin's thing. So I came here to develop the craft of public speaking. That's what I'm doing here. And for some reason, I don't know what happened, but I kept advancing. And so I kept advancing, but
They couldn't
I'm
ignore you.
extremely, yeah, but I'm extremely, so honestly, let me just tell you, I didn't think I was going to place at all. First of all, I didn't think I was going to place in the semifinals, and then I didn't think I was going to even place in the top 3. So when I was up there, I was kind of uncomfortable because I felt, even though I did the best that I could, it kind of felt weird that there's 3 and start at 28. So that's honestly where I'm from, but I also feel very fulfilled. My husband's here, my best friend's here. I feel extremely honored. And I'm also grateful because one of the things is I love all the feedback coming from world champions. So that's it. That's
Thank
all.
you.
But
Thanks
I
for
made an
joining
effort
us.
to come here because this is what I came here for.
All right, go ahead. All right, we're over to Chris.
All right.
Still talking about Robbie.
Robbie. Robbie was interesting to me. Look, everybody did a great job with humor. I think we can all agree. Everybody used humor well. Most of it was pretty organic, meaning it just kind of came out. Wasn't like Robbie was more written, and I don't mean that in a bad way. That's what I do. I appreciated the fact that he took pen to paper to write things like the knot line that you brought up and things like that. So I just thought that was an interesting contrast with many of the other people up on stage, and I thought he did it very well.
Sweet. And I just want to echo your point. One of the things I loved how he used the stage, because use of stage and characters is my strength. Like Mark Brown's great at digging out stories and wordsmithing, not my strength. I loved how when he talked about the fear, he moved backwards. But like you're saying, I felt like it was slightly in his head, okay, back up now. As opposed to feeling the emotion as he backed up, and I'm overdoing it, that's my style, I would have also kind of crept down a little, but that's just me and my style. But I think everything else I love the real strength is going with a guide by your side. I love the alliteration, the message behind that too, but I agree with Lance, like, it's gotta, how did your life change once you heard that lesson? You know, I had the Brian Tracy quote, said, oh, would you dare to dream if you knew you wouldn't fail? But I lived my life, I heard the quote, my life changed, and that's what was missing. So, any other thoughts on Robbie?
I think overall he was a strong first contestant.
And I would just say for all the contestants, I thought all the speeches were really, very well delivered. And I've seen speeches get up where they're in the head and they're just giving a rehearsed speech. I thought everybody was, I thought it was a good contest across the board with all the speakers.
And one thought on the Ravi and what you were mentioning, what was helpful to me was like placing different scenes on the stage. But what really helped is when I practiced, I had my dad stand out in the audience and randomly choose scenes. So I internalized it rather than memorized it. Because I think there were a few moments he was in his head, and when you're in your head, your emotions are dead.
Yeah.
When you're in your head, your emotions are dead.
If I can just amplify on that one point, we all agree on many points and we will all disagree on some points. And this is one where I have a different take on movement on the stage. Darren has said many times, and he and I have done this presentation together on many locations around the world, and we've said this at the same time. Darren believes that every place on the stage should have a purpose. I, on the other hand, am a much more staid presenter, and I say I don't want to move anywhere on the stage unless I have a purpose. So that's the difference, is that Darren's is more choreographed, mine is more organic, and they're both, which one's right? It's which one's right for you.
Yeah.
Well, in the 1900s, things were different.
Yeah, that's right.
That's upset.
When I practiced with a coal oil lantern, yes. When we were getting ready for the finals, the videographer, his name was Bill Stevens, asked for us to, all the finalists, to submit a written script. He said, write it on half column down the page. And he said, on the other half, he said, I want you to put staging notes on the outside column so we can know how to follow you with our 3-camera shoot. And I remember specifically when I got that instruction, I did the text and I put it down half the page, and on the other half where he wanted the staging directions, I wrote on mine, your guess is as good as mine. And that's how it worked, because when I got up there, I didn't know where I was going to be at any one moment, but I just wanted it to be natural and normal for me at that minute. And which one's right? Again, it only is which one's right for you.
Can you see the value of that level of feedback? I believe most presenters don't get the feedback they need to truly hit their full potential. So I created Stage Time University as a place where you could get that kind of feedback. We have live coaching calls where you get 2 world-class coaches giving you feedback on your story, your opening, your closing, to help you in just 20 minutes have a whole new speech, story, opening, or closing. Join us for Stage Time University and let that kind of feedback make you unforgettable. Join us.
So Darren ran out, but let's do this. Let's start with you, David, and we'll go around this way. Let's do Louise as the second speaker. Why don't you go ahead?
Well, we had a rare treat today in that we had 2 speakers back to back that were speakers that I would say all women should watch those presentations, and that is Louisa and Angelique. If you want to know how a woman's voice can sound, how beautiful it can sound, listen to Angelique's and listen to Louisa's. Both were spectacular in different ways, but the voices so rich. And one of the criticisms that is one of the weaknesses I perceive that women have when speaking out loud is when you get excited, your voice has a tendency to go up, and it gets shrill, and it gets uncomfortable. And the good speakers, the best speakers, the women, know how to bring it down into the chest, and that's what you got to see with Louisa and with Angelique. So great comment on that. Is great props to both for control of voice and a very rich presentation orally. The I love with Louisa's speech, I loved her line when she's talking about the surgical procedure that she's undergoing, or medical procedure, and then she pauses and just tosses in the line, "Best sleep ever." That was a great line that you could tell she was waiting to deliver it, but it made it sound as if it was her first time to ever say it.
Yes.
And that's one of the great things I learned I learned this from Mark Twain. Yes, personally. Yeah.
When we were in high school.
He recommended a procedure, a process, or a technique known as rehearsed spontaneity. And that is, make it sound as if it's the first time you ever said it. And that's what that line did for me. I was concerned, I'll tell you, this was a little bit of a concern for me when she said, "Now I don't want to defend any, I don't want to offend any of you. I want to offend all of you." Now it was a funny line, but I thought, "Oh, you sure you want to do that? Are you sure?" So I had my doubts about that line, but obviously it did not hurt her.
I don't feel like she offended it. She didn't offend me. I didn't feel like she did a wide offense.
But still, it was just one of those questionable calls that there's an awful lot of very sensitive people out there that are going to take offense at the least little thing. And I thought, oh, that one was a risk, but obviously not one that hurt her. And then I would just say that again, one of her strengths was her speech was conversation. Yes. A good speech is a good conversation, whether sitting or standing. And that's what her presentation was, is a great conversation.
Are we going, okay, we're going this way?
Yeah.
Okay. With Louisa, she brings us in immediately into a scene. And then she turns it into the person who was unresponsive, was me. And then she immediately lifts us up with that humor. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I always tell people about is vocal variety is great. Yes, you should have that too, but you also need emotional variety. And Louisa just took us on a roller coaster. I told her by her second paragraph, or the second part of her speech, I was already tearing up. So emotional variety is great. Now, it was risky. She had a couple of risky moves in there, and first one was the one that David had mentioned. And the other one was just even referencing God, period. I'm pretty sure had she practiced that speech in clubs, they would have told her, "Oh, don't bring in any religion. Don't bring in any religion. That's taboo." Yeah. And sometimes I think we get into this mode of, okay, what can win? Instead of saying, what would be fun? What would be creative? Let's test the boundaries a little bit. Everyone knows that I tested the boundaries with the title. So and those for you who don't know, in 2016, I gave a speech. I placed second in the World Championship of Public Speaking in 2016, and my speech title was 57 words long. And that title had to be read twice. You go onto YouTube, you see that Arron Beverly, World Champion of Public Speaking, speech length, 9 minutes. How was he not disqualified? Because 2 minutes of that speech was him reading the title. But sometimes you need to have a little fun. It can't always be about how can I win the trophy? How can you go out there and have a little fun? And did I have any particular? There was one piece of feedback that I did have for Louisa with the 37 strangers. I think the young man who had also lost his legs should have been one of the 37. That was really the only thing that I had for her, but yeah, I loved it.
So I imagine a lot of you, like me, have heard people say what some of the rules are. Not rule book rules, but you must do this, you must not do that. And I love it when I see a purposeful rule breaker. Somebody who breaks the rules on purpose for a purpose. I'm sure if you ask somebody, should you always start looking at the audience? Absolutely. Why would you not? And she didn't. She not only wasn't looking at the audience, she turned to where her entire face was obscured by her hair for 30, 45 seconds, however long it was. So that was a rule break on purpose for a specific purpose. There are also people, setting aside the fact of whether or not somebody has any mobility issues, people will say, oh, there's a rule, and we talked about it earlier about some of the movement. You have to, move across the stage, and she didn't move this direction, but she did have vertical movement when she stood up. Now, I was a little bit unclear as to whether or not she had signaled about the degree of her injury and how much she had recovered. So I was concerned that people might look at it as a, well, does she really need the wheelchair or not? And so I might have advised having some little a phrase, I'm glad that now I'm at the point where I can, and so then there was indeed the significant injury that kept her from being able to do that, but now she can't. So that's a bit of a minor thing. I also loved her technique, and this is something that gives you license to free yourself from reality and truth in your stories. When she said, getting into heaven was probably something like this. And then she was able to step completely into a different frame of silliness.
Crazy town.
Yeah, crazy town,
Crazy
if you
town,
were
yeah.
here earlier.
Yeah.
But that gives some freedom to really explore that space and then, move back into the seriousness of the real things that she's talking about. So.
Just hopping on the heaven story, it's a great tool to use where she could shift kind of outside of the story for, however long that was, a minute and a half, and get a bunch of laughs, and then come back and it felt like it was all part of the same thing. Yeah. So I thought that was terrific. You saw me earlier. Every time you introduced a character, you have an opportunity to make them quirky. I love the iPad with St. Peter, which I thought was cool. I would have loved this is where I wish we had more time, because I would have loved to seen that scene go even longer, because I think comedically there were so many other opportunities there she could have gone with God and St. Peter. But I thought it was really terrific, and I agree. Best Sleep Ever was awesome, because right at the top she creates all this tension, and then boom, she drops Best Sleep Ever. That's textbook use of humor. Create tension and then just release it, and she did it right at the top. It really helped just lighten up the room. The other thing about standing is, I agree with you because I'm a cynic also, by the way, but also I think, I was saying this to someone earlier, is the audience wants to know you're okay. Okay, she's talking about a car accident, all this other stuff, and the fact that I didn't see her in the semis, so I didn't know what the situation was, and the fact that she stood, I'm like, I know she's still got a long way to go, but it felt to me like it was like, oh, thank God, she's okay. Do you know what I mean? And so for me, I thought that was extremely effective, for what it's worth.
Ditto, a lot of this cracked up on the iPad.
Yeah.
And then and I don't know if we want to make characters likable. When God says, oh, she helps homeless dogs, we have to like her. Yeah. You have to. Even if you don't believe in God, you have to like that. What a likable line. I don't know if it was strategic, but it worked. And I'm an empath. So one of the things that we teach is, in your stories, your goal of the story is to elicit emotion. And you can't elicit emotion unless you express emotion. And I personally got choked up. Now, I'm an easy target for empathy and feeling, but I got choked up right in that section. Now, one of the things I teach is reactions tell the story. Freaking loved her reaction. If you remember, the young man in the gym who started telling me about he was getting married soon. Like, the whole story is told right in that. And a lot of what we teach is, notice then, she thought that way and then it changed. There's a shift in what's going. It's not predictable. It's not predictable, and I love that. And input and output. She had some good writing in there too. And only because we're here and critiquing, I think, back me up or disagree, I liked the close. I didn't love the close. Like going to the paddles to the audience. I was just like, it's good, but she was so good the whole time, and I was like,
Not quite, yeah.
Yeah.
There's one other thing that I made a note of about that, and I happened to be looking over at the screen during that part, so maybe it was a little bit different for those who were looking directly at her. But when she picked out the paddles, which were both black, and held them in front of her, I couldn't see it at all. Now, when she raised them out like this, I could. So I might have suggested, okay, you know what, put white tape or reflective tape or whatever around the edge of it so that even if it's against the black backdrop of your attire, we can still make it out. So that's one of the things, but I also agree with what you said about that.
I do want to make one point about the props, is that I did note down, it's Louisa, she's going to use props. But two, the props were out of sight until they were needed.
Took a little bit long to retrieve them.
It
but
did,
you're right, you're
it
right.
did. But yeah, a lot of times speakers will have props and they'll use them and they'll throw them somewhere and they're stuck there on the stage, and me, I am a neat freak. I am wondering, when are you going to pick that up? And that's going to bother me throughout the entire speech. So if you have a prop, make sure that it is out of sight until and when you
I couldn't resist.
That's a cheat sheet.
to back up that point, there are people in the audience who are just, they're focused on that. There was a guy a few years ago who used he wore a pink thong over his jeans, but the problem was, like, he made a point, it was funny, the problem was then he threw it on the ground. Pink thong. It's like, no, you put that in your pocket, and then it becomes, not even talking about the thong part, but like, it was just, I was pulling an Arron, I'm like, anyway. And one more thing on Louisa, I did love the line, I heard an audible from the audience when she said, if you need a stranger to tell you you have value, allow me to be that stranger. Like,
It was.
bam.
Yeah.
All right, and before we go to, yes.
No, wait.
Oh, wait.
We have.
Oh,
this.
What we did, we started.
Oh,
we
Shad.
started.
I apologize.
So let me go through. First, I concur with, I think, what everybody said here. My personal thing, I did not like the opening, because I don't like openings that cause the audience to be confused on what's going on. What's going, you know, it's like, what's happening? It's okay to say, to create a mystery. I thought she was starting an airplane because I used to fly. And you go clear before you turn the airplane on. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I'm confused trying to figure out what's going on. But great, like best sleep ever, same thing. I thought that was great. I'm not trying to offend some of you, I'm trying to offend all of you. Great line, I had all those things in. The eye roll, like Darren was saying, I had that in there. That I had. I would just say, I thought her pacing was good, her pause was good, her delivery was excellent. I felt there was an opportunity in the speech to tie in the concept of the reset in her life a little bit more than she did with the paddles and the reset and the going to God and the iPad and all that, where she really described how she reset her life. I think there was a little bit more meat she could have gotten in her speech there with that. But like all of us, that's hard to beat as a speaker. You talk about don't follow kids and pets, don't follow somebody who just was crippled and learned to walk again either. I mean, that's a tough person to follow when you're speaking. But those were the main things that I was concurring with what everybody had here. I think that was the notes I had on it. So, cool.
Just a question for you, Darren. 5 years ago, when we were doing, when the champions were doing this for Louisa, which was runner-up to Arron in the room, there were some comments made about her style, particularly. From then on till now, what is the difference you saw in the style that may have helped her win at this time? Because at that time, we all thought she was very raw.
I think she was more connected with herself. And when you're more connected with you, the audience senses that.
Yeah.
If you're not connected with you, that's why I ask my 4 questions before I take the stage. Am I present? What is my intent? And I get clear on that 5 minutes before for mindset. Because Craig and I say skill set without mindset will leave the audience upset. So I think she's grown. You know, stage time is my short answer. All right, before you guys send this out, Does anyone not get my newsletter? Because I have to pay for this room. Please give me the champion of your choice. Free newsletter. I'll pass this around if you'd like to get it. Great. All right, next.
All right.
Three.
Angelique.
Yes.
I thought I already paid for your room.
Replaced by
You did.
So me, I'm particular about attire, and as soon as you walked on stage, I wrote out immediately, sharp. And not only that, but it stood out very clearly from the background of the stage. So it was on the darker side, so if somebody came in with a darker suit, it could be a little bit difficult. Now, we did have good lighting, so I don't think that was too much of a concern, but great attire. I love the modern take. So we say usually that there's no unique speech, there's no unique topic. However, with AI, this is something that is relatively new. So this is modern. This is something that we have never heard about before in a speech. So that made it unique, that made it novel. So great job with that. I loved the emotions that you expressed throughout. For instance, I wrote down the one where, doesn't she sound fake? And I could just feel that energy. Oh, you hate Sophia.
That came from a deep place.
Yeah, that was personal. That was real. But you also had fantastic use of what I call sensory. So anything that can plant an image in your mind, tap any of the five senses, and again, emotion, those will take the audience with you. So great job with that. Now, the one thing that I said that could have made your speech a little bit more clear, or not a little bit more clear, but I think your voice matters should have been the message. That was something that I said, oh, I love that. Your voice matters.
Yeah, that's good.
And that would have been a great way to end the speech, telling the audience and reminding them that your voice matters.
That's a very good line.
Yeah.
Cool. So when your speech title was read, I thought right away, I know what this speech message is going to be. You were replaced by some woman named Sophia, which came with the very nice, unexpected twist that it wasn't a person, it was AI. And when I initially heard that, I thought, okay, I know what this is about. I didn't check out, but it's like, if it seems to be that, I might. But then that twist was very nice and kept me engaged. You had some great lines throughout this. One of them was the question, have you ever felt thrown away like a piece of trash? Now, I made the observation that several of the speeches had, have you ever questions? And sometimes if there's a lot of them echoing, they can be a little bit less effective the more I hear more of them. But that particular question, number one, it was early on, and the essence of the question itself was gripping for me.
Can I piggyback on that?
Sure.
Same thing. Anyway, consider what is the exact answer to have you ever? Is yes or no. Consider when was the last time you.
Yeah.
Now I go to a memory instead of a yes or no answer. Now, because now you connect to that memory, and that memory brings us through the speech.
Yeah. So
That's unusually good for Darren. That's a good one.
well, you notice he had to interrupt me to do that. All right. And there were several other lines that were really great, but the last one I'll mention is the one that really resonated strongly with me. When you talked about the line as I wrote it down was, if you listen closely, you can hear the heartbeat under the words. When you said that, I was just like, ooh. And that was like
Beautiful.
That was solid. I really, really appreciated that. And I'm sure that some of your other lines that you wrote that were excellent will be mentioned by the others, but I'll.
Angela, you don't know me. I'm only here because I'm Darren's friend.
He's a professional comedy writer.
I know he is.
Oh,
Watch the
okay.
YouTube video.
I loved this speech. I loved it. As a member of the Writers Guild of America, I walked in a circle for 100+ days last year because of AI protection.
Okay.
And I know exactly how devastating artificial intelligence voice creation is to voice workers, actors and workers. So this connected with me immediately. I didn't know, again, great title. I didn't know what that meant. I thought it was going to be another woman. I had no idea. The fact that it was AI was amazing. You had a terrific use of humor. Again, back to, she sounds so fake. That was awesome. That was such a great moment because it was like petty and it was great. And
Appropriately petty.
it was just terrific.
Perfectly petty.
Yes.
It was wonderfully petty. And then what I really loved that you did that maybe one or two of the other speakers did, and again, it's all speech by speech, everything's different, but you created an antagonist. Okay, so you created somebody who was like the obstacle was a person, but it wasn't a person. And it was, and somehow, even though Sophia is the blandest antagonist of all time, you gave her personality. And I thought that was really awesome. I thought that your humanity and your attitude, like in juxtaposition to Sophia's absolute soulless blandness, was like, it was just fantastic. So I'm just telling you, it's obviously a really current topic, and I just, it really connected with me, so I'm really glad that thank you for doing it, at least for me.
Thank you.
And congratulations, because I thought it was fantastic.
I'm a fan of reactions. When you said you need to get out of the house, who was that again? That was Grace?
Yeah, my best friend.
So what I would love when you introduce a substantial character is let us see them. So that was your friend Grace. But what did Grace look like? Because if we see the scene or see her, we're even more connected to you. So, and then when she says you need to get out of the house, you didn't react to that. You just went on to your next line. So, and again, it just could be just like Luis's, like, or whatever it is. It can be seconds, but it's almost like wrapping up that line. And then when you were at lunch with Bob, same thing. Let us just kind of get a sense for him. After he talked to you, you were, here's my philosophy. You don't have to follow this. But when you're in scene, when you're delivering dialogue, there's no audience. So you don't make eye contact with the audience as a character while you're delivering dialogue. So if you and he are having the conversation, we're just observing. We're not there. So you kind of turned to us and started telling us your thoughts. Again, tiny, minute, being super picky.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can I just hop in on that? So this is again where mostly we will agree on everything, and we have different nuances. So I think one other option too, because I do personally think that I want my eyes to be on my audience at all times. Now, what was a way that I could navigate or compromise with that is that I would still give my characters a certain direction, and I look in that specific direction, but I'm still looking at the audience.
Right.
Because to me, if I'm looking at my character on the speech, there's nobody there. I'm talking to you, my audience. So it's just another option, as Darren said. It's his philosophy, I have my philosophy, but whatever works for you.
Yeah, and real quick, Lance, one other idea that I had was when you were in the story group, what was the name of the group?
It was just a writer's group.
The writers group. You had some great reflections about what you were feeling. I would have loved to hear your internal dialogue, like while you're still sitting there. Like, wow, that was a great da-da-da-da. Huh. Yeah, she's a little, whatever you said. So taking the exact same thing, but turning it into internal reflection dialogue. And I loved your writing as Sophia. Like that was,
great.
I love the juxtaposition. I lost it when you said, get a job, when she said, get a job.
That was great. That was a great line.
Great writing.
Really good writing.
Okay, great. I'll echo what they said. A couple points. You had a really nice use of triads, which is a very powerful speaking tool. I didn't write them down, but I just put triad every time you did it. I had a number of those on there. I talk a lot about, I think 50% of the power of the speech is in what I call your life force, your life energy, which is exactly what your speech was about. Was about the fact that we're not a lifeless voice. And you brought your passion And I define that by your passion, your conviction, your humility, and your sincerity, all bundled together, that comes out of you. And we're not computers, we're living beings, and we are emotional beings. And I thought that you brought that out very easily. I thought it was a very timely and very important, very relevant message from that standpoint. So I wrote down good pace, good vocal variety, authentic and passion. That was what was coming through to me. It's like this was real to you. It wasn't a subject you picked just because, I think I'll do it. No, this was something you lived. This was something like,
Very personal.
we're talking about. On a suggestion, I thought you started to go into a close or a conclusion before you had your second meeting with Bob. I had connected through voices in my life. I thought the speech was wrapping up, so I was going into a wrap up, and then all of a sudden you pop back out and you go into this meeting with Bob. So I put down there a little star, a double close in your speech, and I've seen that sometimes when people they'll start to close the speech, then they pop back out, and you want to bring that thing along and then wrap it.
Yeah.
You want one close on it. So that would be a suggestion.
Chronologically, I did have that. That came after
Yeah.
Your Voice Matters, and then you went into the other
Yeah.
meeting with Bob.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, I concur.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a little point there, but your presence, to echo, your presence there, I said, the thing I look for is the person's connected to their message. And they are the message that they're speaking. They're not giving a speech out here that, and I really felt you were coming across beautifully on that.
May I ask, what was your last line?
Nothing can replace your human voice.
Nothing can replace your human voice. I was sitting next to Craig, and I nudged him, and I think Darren also at the same time, and I just said, not the strongest last line.
Okay.
It was a soft landing. Now, it was an appropriate place to stop, but it didn't have impact.
Okay.
Your voice control and tone and manner, outstanding. What was the line that you used? I wrote this down, and I may have miswritten it, but what was the line that you used when you referred to the voices in my life that are missing? What was that?
Well, I was realizing that when I was talking about my mother, that one?
I think so.
And
Yes.
then when I asked the audience, are there any voices in your life that you wish you could hear again? I think
Yeah,
it's-
okay, so
something
can
like
you
that.
just stand and say that to the audience? I mean, just right now, just stand and say that to the audience, that one line.
That question.
Okay, okay. Hold on a second. Are there any voices, oh my gosh, okay, sorry, I got thrown off, I see my best friend there. Are there any voices in your life? No, I'm in my head.
No, that's okay.
I'm sorry, I'm in my head. What was the line?
The
Oh, yeah, I
voices in
wrote
your
it.
life that are missing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Are there any voices in your life that you wish you could hear again? That's what I
Now,
said, that you wish you could hear.
My question to you is there a single one of you that is not answering that question in your own head?
Thinking of a name.
I mean, that's a powerful line. I mean, that one, that got me. It did. Because every one of us feel that going, oh yeah, if only I could hear.
Thank you.
That was powerful.
Yeah.
Can you see the value of that level of feedback? I believe most presenters don't get the feedback they need to truly hit their full potential. So I created Stage Time University as a place where you could get that kind of feedback. We have live coaching calls where you get 2 world-class coaches giving you feedback on your story, your opening, your closing, to help you in just 20 minutes have a whole new speech, story, opening, or closing. Join us for Stage Time University and let that kind of feedback make you unforgettable. Join us.
All right, so the next speaker was Elizabeth Hudson, and in the interest of time, all those speakers were great. They got to the World Championship stage because they're great. I'll just look. I'm going to just focus on some of the things that I noticed that I might have offered a little bit of advice on to do differently. There was multiple uses of the prop. The pillow was sleeping, and then as a pregnancy bump. Side lesson, gentlemen, never make any broad comments about women. However, I'm a father, and I have 6 grandkids. I have observed the pregnant female form in all of its wonders. I have never seen one that has square outline. So what I might recommend is have a round pillow so that when it's under the shirt, it looks a little bit more natural. Okay. There was a part at which I felt like she threw her husband under the bus a little bit. He's still afraid of storms, and I didn't feel like it advanced the message any. So, you know, unless there's relevance. Unless it's relevance to advancing your message, I might not advise that. And then the sing-along portion, because of the tempo, it was slow, and I felt the energy just starting to kind of draw down because it was and the audience wasn't on bleachers or something that would echo very much. So there was some potential there to look at tweaking how that was done. I'll leave it at that.
I think it's amazing that Elizabeth had started a year ago or whenever that was. That's kind of, wow. I mean, that's really amazing. So good on her. And of course, just getting to that stage is amazing. I would say she's very obviously powerful with her movement and whatnot. A lot of times speakers don't let the words do the heavy lifting. And she didn't let the words do any lifting. So I think here's the downside of being too active, and this is something I've seen yesterday and today, is if the words are strong, they do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just my message as a writer. You don't need a lot of extra stuff if the words are powerful. So.
My biggest challenge with that one, and again, congratulations for a year making it to the big stage.
Yes, unbelievable.
That's huge. But I had this challenge with don't let a storm rock you, but using the theme, we will rock you. Because rock you is shake you. The song, we will rock you, is like is like a good thing. We're gonna rock your world. So to me, I kind of really had a challenge with the message versus what she was trying to get across. And there were rumors, I don't know, about the originality. I don't know, I'm not a judge, I'm not involved, because she didn't give credit to Queen. You know, and that was a simple, easy thing to do. Now, again, I don't know if that was a challenge or not, but anyway, that was a rumor.
Could have been.
Okay. For me, I didn't like the opening. It was an acting opening. She was not engaging us. We're guessing what's going on. She drops the fourth wall. This is speaking, it's not acting. I didn't like the prop. The prop is a distraction to me. She did not need the prop. She could have had her head, describe how she was sleeping. She could describe how she was pregnant. She did not need the prop. Therefore, it was a distraction to me from that standpoint. She had two distinct stories. I did not feel there was any real connection. Where she transitioned the hole in the roof in the rain over to, she learned something about how she really appreciated her house. And then when she had this newborn baby, that lesson gave her strength that she could now pull from that lesson that she'd had with her house on the storm, and now she has this other storm. There was an opportunity for it, but I never saw that really smoothly come over where it was crystal clear in my mind going, wow, that really makes sense on how I handle my storm. There were to me, they were just two separate stories two puzzle pieces that didn't fit from that standpoint. Again, great credit for her getting there. And what I thought she had good delivery. I thought there were a lot of positives on the story, but on her speech. But in the essence of time, those are some things that I felt were very lacking in the speech.
Cool.
Because most of all of these points I agree with, I would affirm. So, anything else?
The only thing that I have that's unique from what has been said is be careful with your loud and high-pitched noises because they are turn-offs for humans or kids. So just be cognizant.
Yes, I agree. She didn't need to be going. That's almost an acting.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, did you have anything, Jim?
I started.
Okay. Mark scared. Mark Williams scared. My biggest challenge with that one, and I know Mark a long time. I coached him in Malaysia. I didn't coach him this year, but I didn't like the lack of clarity when he said something that scares you, something that doesn't, in the midst of something that scares you and something that scares you more. Like, which one is it? Like, stick to one, in my opinion. When we coach people, 99% of what we coach is clarity, clarity, clarity. I love him, I love his enthusiasm, but that's something that should be clarified.
Yeah, goes to me.
Yep.
A couple of things. His father-in-law or his stepfather gets murdered. That is huge. That is huge. I would leave it out. Leave it out of the speech. He doesn't have a stepfather. Yeah, my God, that is huge in a speech. You leave us with my father-in-law, or my stepfather got murdered. I got blood in the kitchen. Holy smokes, that's hard to overcome. So I would just say keep it out. I did like the message, the whole idea of what scares you more. This fear or the non-action on that fear is going to, I thought there was a good, powerful message, but he did not deliver the message from there was a lot of acting in this, a lot of dramatic acting, and I call a lot of lecturing. And I say this isn't about telling, it's about sharing. We share our story, and he's telling us what we need to do. He's telling us, no, you need to, and it's what Darren says, you need to connect with us in emotion. That story needs to bring the emotion out so we feel what we need to do, and Mark was lecturing us throughout that story. There's a lot of other notes I had on it. In the interest of time, I'll pass it on over to Dave.
Well, only one comment. I liked how the speaker's adage, don't tell us, take us. And when he took the bat and he was going to the door, that I could see the bat. That was a great bit of physical performance there. I could feel it.
For me, really quick, fear gave me the option. I love that. Taking fear as something that, we should avoid fear, but no, fear gave me an option to do something more. So I did like that, but I do agree with your point about the opening. I thought it was a little bit janky, and we talk about the blood on the floor, and then he makes a reference about, now that's a crazy evaluation or something like that. I think it wasn't as effective as what Louisa had done, where she took us into something deep and then brought us up. So I think that could have been cleared up a little bit, but I agree with you that maybe the home invasion, not the murder, in your speech.
The only thing I'll mention, I wondered how in the world, with the adrenaline rush that happens if your home got invaded, do you fall asleep?
Yeah.
The small thing that would have connected the dots would have been, I hid, and my adrenaline was racing so much, and I was clenched tight for so long that it exhausted me until I fell asleep. That would have connected the dots a little bit more. I still would have been, really? But it would have been less, it would have been more like, anyway.
Or blacked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. This message was awesome. Like, choose something to be more afraid of. I just thought that was amazing. It connected with me. It moved me. I really enjoyed it.
One more thing is the moment. There's a moment of revelation in a good story or a good speech, and he threw it away. The moment was, I didn't want to live like that anymore. That's an important moment when you make that decision, and now your life is going to change. So I want to see like a few seconds before that and then a few seconds after that. All right, let's go
Go
to
to Percy. Okay, I'll take off on that one.
go for it.
Okay, a couple things on Percy. Who's in the chair? First of all, he talks about his students, but he never gives us a student.
Yes.
And I wanted a student with a problem in the chair, so it's real. And then he goes off and he does his zip lining, his rappelling and all that, and he learns the lesson. And then I wanted him to go back and help the student with the lesson that he learned. And so he never gave us a student. The other thing, just to keep this short, massive acting on that. Now, it was funny. Very connected with the audience. The audience is laughing their butts off. But he was acting. He's on the best use of chair I've ever seen. Maybe
Poor JA.
2001. But great use of a chair.
It was a good long streak.
Best comedic use.
Yeah.
Heart touching.
That's dramatic use, artistic.
But the whole, he's up there and he's like, he's scared and he's, no, he's not. That's not what's going on with him on the stage. He's acting like he's on some mountain point. So I want oratory excellence. Take me there with the story.
I love the juxtaposition of the contrast when he talked about the zip line, and then he says, and the rope that had been going horizontally is now going vertically. Nice contrast. And I love the line that he had, he met me where I was.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Which I think would have been more effective if he had done what Lance had suggested, and we knew the conflict with the students that would have helped us understand, like, okay, that's how and why you're applying it to your students. But one thing that I will mention, and this is just through conversations I've had with other people, and again, similar, or on the point that Lance was making, one of the best pieces of feedback that I can get as a speaker is, oh, Arron, you are the same person on the stage that you are off the stage.
Authenticity.
Authenticity. Firsie's demeanor on stage is not the Firsie that I have personally interacted with. So to Lance's point, I think it's more acting more than being conversational and being vulnerable as a speaker.
And being truly authentic on it.
Yeah.
Something else I had was he had a very slow opening. When he got into the acting part, it sped up quite a bit. This is not official at all, but I suspect he was one who went overtime. And you have to, this is something I learned from David, you have to budget for time.
Yes.
You have to know where you're going to get laughs and allow extra time for them. One of Firsie's disadvantages was the previous time he was in the championship, it was virtual. So there wasn't the need to account for audience reaction and allow for it. But that's one of the things that I think he really needs to do is if you're, with all this other stuff, budget time and have a better idea of what your time is likely to be and underestimate. Do the 6 or 6.5 minute speech and have the time accordingly.
Yeah, if the applause break was like 2 seconds smaller, he wouldn't have gone over time.
Right.
Right. I always say, don't let the audience's enjoyment of your speech put you at risk.
Yeah.
And I always tell people to rate their laughs and time them and put in the margins. A chuckle is, in a big room, a chuckle is going to be 2 seconds. A decent laugh that is only going to get just a bare register if it's in a small group. In a big group, it's going to be 4 seconds. If it's a big, good laugh, it's going to be 6 or more seconds. So you go through and you rate your laughter and you put in a margin, +2, +4, +6, +8. And as you're practicing, you stop and force yourself with a stopwatch to pause for that length of time before you resume, because you don't want the audience to make you have to rush at any point or put you at risk.
I think the big thing that's interesting, because obviously I'm newish to this, is like when you're on a late night show and you can't go over, you have a clock and it's digital. Here you have a color, so it's much harder to know when you're that close at the end, especially when the adrenaline's going. So I agreed, and when we coach, when it comes to this, we always tell people don't get that close to 7:30. What I will say from a humor standpoint, absolutely delightful. The escalation was fantastic. To start with the zip line, which was funny, and then go to the rappelling, which was even funnier, and then to that, he ended on it. He built to an applause break. It was really, really, from a humor standpoint, I just thought it was masterful. And again, I wish the applause break didn't happen, or if he had jumped in on it, to go into the next thing, maybe it would have managed time better. But anyway.
I didn't love the opening line. Imagine someone you care about sitting in the seat. Like, it needed a little more context to really get me to imagine that. And I agree to personify with a student that represents all the students. I would have loved to have seen him if he did that. Let's say it was Johnny. And we know Johnny's problem or Johnny's issue. At the very end, when he was picking the chair up, I would have loved to see him talk to Johnny. Johnny, you got this. It's okay. I'm with you. Instead of just talking about what he would be saying. I want to hear him say it to the personification.
I just want to add on that. He added another message when he, at the end, I was totally surprised. He picks the chair up and he goes, "You both rise," and that's a completely different message that was never in any of that speech until the very end.
And he also, whenever you're using, and David helped me with this, adjective, adverb, when he says...
It was a noun.
I have no clue what he's talking
Yeah. Whenever you're saying petrified, what's petrified?
Well, it would be a verb.
It would be a verb.
Okay, so whenever you're saying something like petrified, like show us, don't tell us. You're telling us about something rather than show us you're petrified, or say something that gets us to feel you're petrified, as opposed to saying, I was petrified. That's one of those act outs, and he had a few of those that it could have been even funnier, I think, if he used dialogue. All right, next, Stefano, the simple toothpick.
One quick observation on that one. Don't give away your speech and your title.
Yeah.
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 Pick a title that makes people lean in. Pick a title that makes them wonder, I wonder what that's going to be about. My speech title, Silver Bullets. Did anybody have a clue what the speech was going to be about? No. So, unless they were thinking Coors Light. But no. So find something that is an enigma, something that is a puzzle, something that is a riddle, or something that makes people wonder instead of giving it away.
No. Very solid, safe speech overall, in my opinion. Relatable topic for Toastmasters, of course. He had great uses of humor in there. He utilized something that we don't usually hear too much about, where he talked about he had us apply the senses of smell and taste just through chicken parmesan. It's rarer that people utilize smell and taste, but overall, pretty solid, pretty safe.
Great starting with the visuals and the aromas of the chicken parm that you mentioned. I loved the Italian accent. I believe from his background, his voice in making that. I didn't believe it, when you're tense and upset, does your throat allow you to make sounds even involuntarily like Chewbacca? That part, I was like, I mean, it was funny, but I didn't quite connect it and believe it. So that's it.
He did a great job with introducing the characters and making them quirky. That's what I loved about it from a humor standpoint. If you bought a #1 mom mug, you were robbed, whatever that line is. What a terrific line that was.
It is.
That, and the bullies being chased away with the wooden spoon, and the stereotypical dad, all that stuff, it just created sticky characters in my mind. And I saw it. Like when he was doing the scenes, I saw all the people, and I thought that was awesome.
Sweet. All right, let's go to Hannah. Are you ready?
Wait, I just want to comment very quickly on that. I thought it was a very solid speech. There wasn't a clear takeaway that I took away. I mean, the toothpick did not do it. And I would just give this analogy to it. It was a little bit like driving 120 miles an hour in the Indy 500. Everybody else was going 200, and he came up with a really good run at 120. The speech just had, it was great delivery, everything, description, all that, just didn't have any punch on, is he moving me? So,
Yeah. Like I said, very, very safe.
yeah.
Safe.
Yeah.
I remember calling David Brooks and asking him, he wasn't coaching me, but I asked him, I was allowed to ask general questions. And I did the +4 seconds, just like he said. Still went overtime, but, but I asked him with the fall, I said, I have this really dramatic thing, but it's part of my message. And he said, Darren, you may win by it, you may lose by it, but you have to stand out. I'm gonna apologize. I'm gonna hold off because we got to wrap this up and we're getting kicked out of the room. So let's go to Hannah. Are you ready? Oh my gosh, how freaking unbelievably charming and delightful!
Yeah.
Like you just couldn't not like her.
Her charisma was like off the
Yeah.
charts. It was crazy.
Hers is a great example of building momentum as you go.
Yeah.
The first 2 minutes were okay. The middle 2 minutes were better, and the last 2 minutes, they were on fire. I mean, she just, whoa, and took off. But it was a little bit of a slow start, but a powerful end.
I'll just say that authenticity was her strength. Definitely was her strength. And just knowing, I had conversations with Hannah previously, and that message really hit home for her, and you could tell. So sometimes when you really feel your message, your audience can feel that. And we were with Hannah, especially when she started getting some steam and going full steam ahead.
Ordinarily, I recommend people don't really heavily incorporate Toastmasters in your speech. It should be something that stands alone outside of Toastmasters. But I thought she did a masterful job of the playfulness about that and her relationship with Oscar. and it was the continuation of that that made it more effective. She did, one thing where there was a twist on it. Okay, now we're going to actually get to the part about Oscar asking her out or whatever, but it was something else about Toastmasters. So that continuation of that, the absurdity of continuing that, continued the funny, and I thought that was effective.
Several very good twists.
Yep.
A lot of misdirection, and she
Never
did it
be
well.
ready, just start.
Yeah.
Great, I quit.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
creative tension, boom. And it was a terrific misdirection joke that just came out of nowhere, and like I just guffawed at it. So it was terrific.
Sweet. All right, we got to clear out in just a couple minutes, but first let's give a round of applause for the champs. Lance. Can you see the value of that level of feedback? I believe most presenters don't get the feedback they need to truly hit their full potential. So I created Stage Time University as a place where you could get that kind of feedback. We have live coaching calls where you get 2 world-class coaches giving you feedback on your story, your opening, your closing, to help you in just 20 minutes have a whole new speech, story, opening, or closing. Join us for Stage Time University and let that kind of feedback make you unforgettable. Join us.
Check out StageTimeUniversity.com, where good presenters become unforgettable.